Good evening. Is this on? Can you hear me in the back? Raise your hand if you can hear me in the back. Thank you. Good evening. This is a historic event. Our first council meeting on the road. So thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Councilwoman Lautenbacher for the idea, and watching at home is Councilwoman Pam Talmadge, who suggested this, and our youth city council, who is instrumental in making this happen today. That was her idea and her initiative, former Councilwoman Talmadge. Before we go any further, I'd like to call this meeting to order unless there's an objection, and ask each council person, starting with Councilman Hennigan, to go down the row and introduce ourselves for some of you who may not know who we are.
Good evening, John Hennigan.
Hello, I'm Joe Seconder.
Good evening. I am Councilwoman Stacey Harris.
I am Mayor Lynn Deutsch.
Catherine Lautenbacher, District 1.
Rob Price. Tom Lambert.
Councilman Price, can you lead us please in the invocation?
At this meeting, help us to make decisions which keep us faithful to our mission and reflect our values. Give us strength to hold to our purpose, wisdom to guide us, and a keen perception to lead us. And above all, keep us charitable as we deliberate. If you'll please remain standing while the Dunwoody High School ROTC present the card art and join us with the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for presenting the colors, and we can all be seated. If members of the Youth City Council are present, would you mind rising so we can recognize you? Stand up. I'm not going to make you talk or anything. And then, I know there are lots of students here. We want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope you learned something. We're all easy to find through Google if you have any questions afterwards. And with that, I will begin public comments. We'll have 30 minutes. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. If you plan to speak and you did not get a card, they're out front. And we will begin with Tom Bass. You'll have 3 minutes. Just come up to the podium and introduce yourself. Additionally, we have another public comment section at the end of the meeting.
I'm just here to welcome everybody to Dunwoody High School. My name is Tom Bass. I'm the principal. It is such an honor to have the first city council meeting here. Mayor Deutsch, we're so glad to have you, the rest of the council members, Chief Grogan, all these wonderful students that are here. Dunwoody High School is all about relationships. It's all about community. We are so fortunate to live in a great community of Dunwoody, and it's all about city government, the students, the staff, all stakeholders making Dunwoody what it is, which is a great mini metropolis to live in. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all of our teachers and students who put so much time and effort into making this happen tonight. Have a great meeting. Thank you all and welcome to Dunwoody.
Principal Bass, can you tell people where the bathrooms are in case they haven't been here?
But make a quick getaway, Mayor. Right outside the door, to the right, there are restrooms, okay? So you may use restrooms, right to the right, there's men's and women's right to the right, right outside. And also in the building, where you can go right outside the doors, okay? And on that note,
Thank you for
have a great night and have a great meeting. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alex and Maya. I had that wrong. Join us at the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, I am Alex Abate and I'm the Activities Coordinator for Youth City Council.
And I am Maya Proba, the Social Media Manager for Youth City Council.
We are here today as passionate social studies students that value participation in the political process. Both of us have taken classes such as government and politics and US history that have helped us realize the important role that government plays in our society.
As such, we implore all students to partake in civic society, whether that is by informing yourself about local representatives, attending city council meetings, or showing up to the polls on election day. Our generation is the future, and we must begin involving ourselves now.
You can all start today by joining Youth City Council or making a public comment right here. You can comment on anything in the world, including potholes, environmental protection, or even constructing more sports fields here in Dunwoody.
Thank you all for joining us today, and please make a public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice job. Valentina and Irene. You'll join us at the podium. And you'll have 3 minutes. And thank y'all for participating.
Hi, my name is Irene Bottini. My name is Valentina Chua. And we are the co-presidents of Youth City Council.
Thank you all, students and council members, for taking the time out of your day to participate with us. And thank you to Mr. Barry for being a wonderful sponsor to our club.
We hope you learn something and have a great time.
Thank you. Joe Hirsch. Approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Joe Hirsch, and this is exciting because I get to share a little kernel of some knowledge from when I was a journalism teacher at what was Grady High School. Wanted to make sure all the students and teenagers here are familiar with and understanding what the Georgia Open Records Act is. It's a wonderful tool that allows you to know what's going on in your city, the truth, other than just relying on a press release. You might be familiar with it. You might have heard sometimes the Georgia Open Records Act is called Sunshine Laws, or you hear about someone making a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act. But in Georgia, the Open Records Act is designed, and the purpose is to give and encourage public access to information and to foster confidence in government through openness to the public. The goal of these laws is to prevent fraud, corruption, inequality, and to maintain high ethical standards. While there certainly are some things that are exempt, but generally those restrictions are pretty narrow. So students even have a broad range of the ability to know what's going on, such as, do you want to know about a teacher's application for working at Dunwoody High School? You have access to that. Do you want to see if there's any reprimands in your teacher's personnel files? You have access to that. What about a criminal history background check or any training records of your teachers? You have access to those too. And then even within your city government, you can request to read all of mayor's emails if you want. If you want to know what's going on, you have the ability to read all of her emails. You even have the ability to read text messages from a police officer if you want to. Except in my case, you see what happened with the city of Dunwoody was I requested some text messages from a police officer and 3 city employees lied and said that those don't exist. And when I proved to the city, none of the council members up here showed any moral or ethical guidelines or ethical standings to interfere to help me. They just stuck to the line where our city clerk, our assistant city clerk, and our IT manager deliberately lied, saying that there were no text messages when in fact there were. So as a remedy, what can you do? When the city lies and there's no one with any moral character up in front of you, you have to sue the city. And that's where we are, because nobody up here, our city manager, nobody up here would take the proper steps to do what's right to foster truth and to foster openness to residents who live in Dunwoody. And it's a shame. You know, as I mentioned, the purpose of the Open Records Act is to prevent fraud, corruption, and inequality. But none of that's happening because none of these members up here were willing to do anything. So I hope that all of you, aside from those in government classes, take the time to explore the Open Records Act in Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst.
Amy Quinn. Just introduce yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Amy Martin Quinn. I reside at 3710 Whitsom Court here in Dunwoody. But I'm here tonight on behalf of the Dunwoody chapter of the National Charity League, a nonprofit organization of mothers and daughters who serve their communities together. I'm also here as a proud citizen of the city of Dunwoody because of the outstanding efforts recently by 2 city employees. The Dunwoody chapter of National Charity League includes 250 women and girls, some of whom I saw in the audience, the vast majority of whom reside here in our great community. NCL focuses on fostering the mother-daughter relationship through philanthropy, culture, and leadership. Our philanthropic efforts are 99% focused on volunteerism, serving organizations across the metro area, including great organizations like the Dunwoody Nature Center, Sproul Center for the Arts, and Malachi's Storehouse right here in Dunwoody. Culture and leadership come primarily through our monthly meetings. Our girls meet with their classes, and the moms meet as a collective group. Navigating this phase of life is a collective effort. The focus of the Mothers' January meeting was the critical area of cybersecurity and safety for teens. Our program leaders had worked really hard to secure a speaker, only to learn 2 weeks ago that his fee was thousands of dollars. As a nonprofit focused on serving the community, that far exceeded our budget. Gratefully, our chapter president, Allegra Johnson, was familiar with our city's efforts in this area. She contacted Mayor Deutsch and Councilman Lambert, who quickly engaged Ginger LePage and the city's technology director and Dunwoody Police Sergeant Anwar Silo. With 3 daughters, ages 20 to 14, I've been in NCL for many years, and I've attended many, many monthly meetings. I can tell you without question, this was the most impactful meeting we've had in years. Ms. LePage and Sergeant Silo used their expertise and their own experiences as parents to create content that resonated with the audience, fact and data-based, but also impactful and relatable. What stood out most to me was the genuine concern for the citizens of our great community. I think we all agree the cyber world is really challenging for all of us to navigate, but their empathy-based expertise, grounded in protecting the members of this community, was exactly what this audience of mothers needed to hear. I pulled this from the city's website. The mission of the city of Dunwoody is to provide the highest quality of life for those who live, work, or play in our community. It goes on to say, we will serve all stakeholders in a transparent manner with resourceful, efficient, progressive, and professional leadership. Without question, and with our sincerest gratitude, Ms. LePage and Sergeant Silo represented our city's mission in spades. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment because that's all the cards I have. With that, council, we move on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Joe.
Thank you, Mayor. I was not here on the December, and just to let the folks know, some of the consent agenda items are things that we've already seen and discussed. And I just wanted to ask, I spoke before the meeting that Richard Plato just come in and give a quick update on the background of the matrix of the document. I appreciate the detail of that and so on. If you could just walk through that for just a minute. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I'd like to actually remove it from the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'd like to be its own separate. item.
Okay, so you can sit back down and make a motion, John, to pass it with an amendment.
I'd like to remove item 2 from the consent agenda. And that being said, I'd like to approve the consent agenda as I'd like to make a motion to remove item 2 from the consent agenda.
Okay, need a second.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion?
And then item 2 will remain as
Oh,
a
right, we need to,
business item or discussion.
we need
Where
to,
will we
how
put it
about
on?
number, just make it the new number 3,
4.
I guess, 4. Just put it at the top of business. Is that okay, Sharon? All right, so it becomes whatever you number it, John, go ahead.
And then move the consent agenda as amended.
Wait, we didn't vote on the, no, because,
Sorry.
all right, all in favor of the motion to remove item number 2, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. All right, now, John,
Move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
moved by Councilman Hennigan, second by Councilman Price. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, that carries unanimously. All right. So Sharon, I guess you need to read number 2. Or what used to be number 2, which is now number 3. I don't know.
Moving to business items, action items, number 4, contract award for Brook Run Skate Park
You
concession.
move the item John moved.
My apologies. Number 2, which was moved, capital project closeout and reallocate funding, Richard Plato.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this item is we've identified projects that have been completed and funds, some had funds available, some overran the budget, and we're making adjustments to those projects. The net effect for all funds impacted by these projects is 0. So it's all reallocating within each given fund. We listed out the projects that are impacted within the agenda item. I won't read through every one unless there's questions.
Well, Joe, I think that's what Joe wanted. Joe, go ahead.
Right, I mean, is it too much to put it on screen now? Is it gonna be too, otherwise I can continue, just have a conversation. So the conversation is that I'm not an accountant, but I appreciate the attachments in the memo, and there were some minuses and pluses, but I just did not know the so what and what the effect. So I appreciate you coming in to each of these 1, 2, 3, 4 funds. And there's pluses and minuses to each of these funds. Now, we don't have it on screen now for our audience members, but if you could imagine, and then it's all net 0. So there's some that, for example, Dunwoody Village Street Grid Regency, 600 grand was allocated, but that project's no longer. So all of a sudden we had an extra 600 grand and that's under SPLOST. And then there's some other pluses. So I mean, minuses. So those all were just kind of added in based on conversation with Public Works Director or the applicable department heads to say, well, here's projects that are in flight. We need some additional funding and we're allocating it toward that, right? So it's a net effect of 0. It's taking these funds, projects are finished or they're not applicable or they're over and we're netting them out. So I just appreciate you restating that for me. I've read the memo and I've read the document, but it helps further explain it to me. Thank you.
Councilman Hennigan.
Thank you, Richard. I have a couple questions, if I may. We're moving almost $2 million worth of expenditures here in this memo. We really didn't have a budget meeting and we probably should have based on the amounts that we're talking about. That being said, I have some questions. Your wayfinding, it looks like we're putting a lot of money towards wayfinding, and that was based on the memo originally from July 24th of 2023. The numbers don't look the same. Are we giving more? Does the wayfinding need more money than was originally allocated in the July memo?
I'll have to check that. I thought the amounts in here equaled what was approved in that memo, so I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, your memo from the 23rd of July, 24th of July talks about ARPA 1, CARES 2, and then capital projects money, and somehow the numbers don't match up.
Now, we did have in that original memo, we did have a contribution from an outside entity that we're still pursuing, so they might not. We need official clarification if we're going to get money from that outside entity, so it might not add fully based on that.
And then I see in that memo, it says 328,000 coming from the general fund. Where we have in a couple different places, at one place today, we have 498,000. And another place we have, well, the 100,000 was mentioned from the, I guess I'm really looking at that 498 versus the 300. I was trying to match up and I'm not seeing a match.
Sure. So, and actually, based on the projects that we were able to close out, when we presented that original memo, we thought we were gonna have to use fund balance out this project. Based on, as you said, the almost $2 million that we're reallocating here, I think we were able to come up with additional funds, not have to use fund balance from the general fund in order to fund this project.
Okay. The next question I really have is really about the paving. There's a couple of sections in here in SPLOST. There's a resurfacing of 50,000. And in the capital projects, 350 road resurfacing for 375,000. Where's that money coming from?
So, and I think Michael Smith is here. He might be able to speak to that.
Please, I'd love to have that
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. So the paving money that's being moved here is when the project budgets for those capital projects were approved. We said in the memo, we'd have to move some money around, and the paving, we're using paving money to pay for paving in those projects. So like the 375,000. I think was part of that went to Winter's Chapel, and I think maybe another project where we had what was allocated in SPLOST for that project was not enough when we got the contract, the bids back. And so we said we would have to piece together the funding to make that whole.
So is this excess money from 23? Or are we taking money out of the 24 budget, allocating for paving and putting it somewhere else?
This is just excess money in paving that's accumulated over a number of years. And actually, when we recommended using some of that money for these projects, we had it set aside in the paving budget so that we didn't touch it.
So it's accumulated money. We're not touching the 24 budget to move it to other places.
No.
All right, and finally, I'm looking at the Winter's Chapel. There's a couple different places here. Well, part of it, the capital project's 350, Richard. Can you explain that there's different funds and different funds give us different things that we can spend money on. For example, the SPLOST fund, Richard, the fund 320, what are we allowed to spend that money?
The majority of that is transportation related repaving, for example, intersection improvements, things like that. That's roughly 85%. There is some remaining in there for police equipment and vehicles, and then repairs and maintenance of facilities and parks. That's what the sales tax or SPLOST dollars.
Right, so we can use the 320, the SPLOST money on parks.
Repairs and maintenance only. Of facilities.
What about the 350 fund?
So that's a much broader scope and can really be used for anything, to be honest. That's really general fund dollars, general fund dollars that have been moved to the capital project fund. And again, a much broader scope in terms of what can be used in that.
Because there's a couple of things coming out of SPLOST that I had concerns over, and I just want to make sure. The police department has radio coverage improvements and expanded video surveillance, decrease of almost 500,000. Is chief, do we not need that money? Are those projects done? That seems like a lot of money to be giving back. I want to make sure we worked hard to get the radios working for our police officers.
Yes, sir. That large chunk was from the radio project, and we spent all the money we needed and then corrected the problem. So we had excess money there.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I want to confirm, hearing it from you, that you have all the money you need to do for the safety of the officers and the communication.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's good. So that's 340 and another 110,000. So that's money that we are taking away from the budget. What we're putting money into, there's a couple things. We're putting another 480,000 into Winter's Chapel from the SPLOST and another 200, almost 300,000 from the capital projects. Does that sound right, Richard?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, again, we're putting money towards paths, which I'm not sure the community is aware of. There was a bond referendum, there was a vote regarding paths. We really haven't had much of a conversation, so I want to make sure that the community is aware that we are moving forward on paths. There was a meeting for the zoning board of appeals, which had a 12-foot trail on Tilly Mill as a possible thing that might be happening. We are moving forward on Winters Chapel Engineering. There's an RFP on the street for that. We're putting money, as you can see, towards Winters Chapel. Later tonight, we have paths that are up for discussion on Mount Vernon. We're looking to expand the engineering to expand 12-foot paths in front of single-family homes on Mount Vernon. I just want to make sure that this $2 million budget moving of money is well vetted, and I think I'm doing that today. Thank you.
Chief, can you come back up, please? Richard, I'm probably need you to. So it looks to me that almost all the money that you save, probably just because of budgeting and we overestimated costs, is going into in-car camera system replacement, because there's a expenditure of about 400,000. Is that about right, Richard? It's like a swap?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, thank you. Any further discussion or comments?
Move to approve.
Moved by Joe. Second, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Sharon, that's 6-1.
Item number 2, under business items, is contract award for Brook Run Skate Park concessionaire Rachel Waldron.
Hello, good evening. As you may recall, oh, sorry. Is that better? Okay. So October of last year, our current skate park concessionaire terminated his lease. We put the RFP back on the street. Action and Adventure was the highest scoring. And then based on feedback from last meeting, we added the reference letters for you, Ms. Harris, and then we worked with legal on updating those renewal terms for the contract. So I'm just here tonight to revisit that item and seek approval to have Action and Adventure be our new skate park concessionaire at Brook Run Park.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the letters of reference. My other question I have from the last meeting, and I apologize, I was just going over my notes today, background checks, because I know we require it for all our users with our athletic agreements. Did that make it, I didn't see it referenced in our agreement that they have, I assume we want staff to have background checks.
So part of the agreement is that the owners of Action Adventure will do that for their staff, but Parks does not do that, no.
I know the parks. I didn't see it in the agreement. Can you just point it out to me where it's there, where they have to do background checks? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, just 1 second. So if you go to Exhibit A under Scope of Services. You'll see the heading for company responsibilities. It's fourth from the bottom, obtain criminal background checks.
Thank you. The exhibits always get me. Okay.
Anybody else? Have to look differently. Catherine.
Yes, Rachel, I saw there was a date change to the revision, like a revision to this contract. What were the changes? Was that one of them?
You're talking about the terms with legal?
The contract, the agreement, the Action Adventure agreement says revised 1/4/24.
Yeah, so that's when I started working with legal on updating those terms. So it'll be effective once it's approved. And then the new language in the agreement will be automatic 1-year renewals for a maximum of 5.
Okay, thank you.
Changed, yep.
Anybody else? This is an action item.
Move to approve.
What?
Second.
Oh, you can, Tom, Councilman Lambert, did you make a motion? Okay, sorry. I need a second. Sorry. All right, any discussion? Stacy, did you have another question?
Remind me, this is for 1 year,
Yes,
1 year, and then
One.
we can revisit.
one automatic, yep, for a maximum of 5. Okay.
All right. Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is approval of contract for shade structures at Two Bridges Park. Rachel Walker.
Yes, so for this one, we're requesting, a contract to be awarded, for Superior Recreational Products. They will be providing shade sails over the playground and splash pad portions of the Two Bridges Park. We were able to purchase this off of, a government consortium, received a very fair price. We worked with purchasing to obtain that. That's that 12% discount you see in the quote. So we are requesting, that we're able to award this contract and work with the city manager and legal on executing that.
Any questions or discussion?
Move to approve.
Moved by Councilman Hennigan,
Second.
second by Councilman Lambert. Joe, go ahead.
And the funds that, the fund is coming from? what
From
fund?
capital.
Okay,
Mhm.
fine, thank you.
Right, well, the project had come in under budget, significantly under budget as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
And we think that they'll start soon and hopefully be out by June or July.
current manufacturing lead times are probably looking at 5 to 6 months, just to be conservative. We'll do our best to get it done quick, right?
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
Thank you.
Shades are coming to the park.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a second read, review and consideration of a text amendment to amend the sign code regulations and procedures for animated signs, chapter 20. Paul Leonhardt.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'll keep this relatively quick compared to what you've seen during the first read. What we did is like we struck out the maximum 60-day requirement for these temporary signs. The big objective here is to take one piece away for people who make sort of code complaints of this because it has been up for 61 days. So to take one trigger away. Otherwise, no changes compared to what you've seen during the first read.
Anyone have questions? Seeing none.
Move to approve.
Moved by Joe,
Second.
second by Councilman Lambert. Just for the education opportunity that we have. So this, if you heard a few months ago about what my family affectionately calls Dinosaur Gate, with the issues of, it really wasn't about dinosaurs, it's about inflatables. And Dunwoody, it may surprise some of you to know that we are 52,000 people. And we are a local government and not a homeowners association. And so we do our best to have ordinances that are easy to enforce and understand, but also don't extend into areas where maybe we shouldn't. And so this was probably not the intention of the sign rewrite to have that language in there for residential areas, but we are correcting it now. And with that, I will call the question. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously.
The last item under action items is a SPLOST, which is special purpose local option sales tax bond results declaration, and I will read the caption. An ordinance, pardon me. A resolution of the city of Dunwoody, Georgia, declaring the results of an election determining the issuance or non-issuance of general obligation debt by the city of Dunwoody, Georgia. The imposition of a 1% special purpose local option sales tax and continued suspension of the homestead option sales and the use tax and levy of the equalized homestead option sales and the use tax and for other related purposes. Jay Benecki.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is a resolution for your action. When the voters approved the SPLOST within the city limits of Dunwoody this past year, it also authorized that funding to be bonded if necessary during that time. One thing about bonding is the results of the election must be validated within 6 months of the election in case it needs to happen within the 6 years of the SPLOST. Currently, staff does not expect to bond this, but we do not want to be caught 2 or 3 years away from here and have an opportunity where we could bond the remaining amount. So this is before you to allow the city attorney and staff to go ahead and have the bonds validated. What this means is it will appear in DeKalb Superior Court, receive any challenges if necessary, and then at that point, the judge hopefully will rule in our favor that they were legitimately approved by the voters, and that way it can happen. It does not authorize issuance of any bonds. That would require subsequent action by the council at a later date. All this does is allow it to be an option for the next 6 years. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Tom?
Yeah, this isn't necessarily a question, but Jay, if you could just clarify, because I know there was a lot of bond discussion over the past couple of months, and this is the type of bond you're talking about is different. This is not a GO bond. This would be revenue bonding based on revenue we'd be already receiving from SPLOST. This would not be an additional tax or anything, and I just want to make sure that's clear that our residents understand the bond referendum did not pass. This is not trying to push that through again. This is completely separate. This is a revenue bond. This would not be an additional tax. This would be off the revenue that we would receive from SPLOST if in fact, as you said, an opportunity arose that we wanted to do that.
You're correct in that statement. It would only occur, it is only through the revenue generated by the sales tax that was approved by the voters.
And it wouldn't allow us to change any of our project allocations, correct?
Correct. Your project allocations stay as approved by council last year.
All right. Any further questions or discussion?
Move to approve.
Moved by Councilman Lambert. Second by Councilman Price. Any further discussions or questions? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Rachel Waldron, back. And congratulations. This is our new Parks Director, y'all. Thank you for Rachel.
Last time, I promise. So about every 3 years, we put our on-call skilled trades quotes out. So we have just received our 10 proposals in response to the latest RFQ. You'll see there's various, we have mechanical, electrical, security. These are people that we've worked with for years, a lot of them. So we just recommend awarding our list provided for on-call maintenance to continue those services.
Okay, this is a discussion item, doesn't it, Catherine? Councilman Lockman.
Hi, I looked through Play It Safe playground inspections, and it does not include Furnishaw or 2 bridges. Is there a reason for that?
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Seconder.
So Rachel, on your memo, I'm trying to pull up electronically, you want to approval of it. So there's, I looked at the number you have there, there's 10. There, you received 10 proposals. And you're recommending 10 vendors. Did you get any more than 10 people, vendors, submitting, for this bid?
No, this was everybody. Yep.
This was everybody. So we didn't get any extras. We got 10 and those are the only 10 we're able to get. I know this is a discussion maybe for next time without having to do too much, but if you could show like, I looked at some of them, the references, which is great there. Maybe a checkbox already used by city. I see that they're using City of Dunwoody as a reference, so that's awesome, or City of Chamblee and so on. So I like that. That is a no-brainer, right? If it's continuing service, it's like already been using them, just kind of nice to know. In that regards, right? Have we used them before? I didn't read through every page on everyone, but I noticed.
Yeah.
I'm looking at references,
Right.
right? That's all. And I'm not sure if this just goes back to procurement or not, but do we ever entertain extending the bid date to try to get additional vendors to respond?
You can't do that.
No, we don't do that. So it was just 10
But
and that's
you can't do
it.
it. You can't do it.
Right, so that's all we got. So it's kind of, obviously, I would have hoped to have gotten more than 10 because we're asking those same 10. Inviting them to have a relationship with the city. I know it's not, these are huge, but it's still important. It'd be great to get, 3 or 4 people bidding on painting. Right? But that's just not the way the world exists apparently. So, next time around, we're putting out for a Clear website, they're advertised and that is what it is. So, okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay, anybody else for Rachel? Oh, sorry. Okay, Stacy, then Tom.
Yeah, Rachel, so I know looking through the RFQs and there's established rates, and some of those vary depending on if it's a worker or a supervisor. When we have and just for the general public's knowledge, this is in a case of we have an emergency repair we need to make. We've got someone that's available and already approved, so we don't have to go through an approval process if we need to, there's a hole in the roof and we need to patch it.
Correct.
So when we make one of these calls, it's still they're still giving us an estimate. We're approving the cost of that project in advance, and we'll know exactly what it's costing.
Right. Yep.
And Rachel, I'm putting you on a spot a little bit, you might not know, but I actually was unaware that we had 10 vendors already for on-call for park maintenance. So what is the budget item that we have allocated to this for, and have we used it in the past, and have we used all of it in the past, or is this just something that we have as needed and hope we don't need it?
Correct. Yeah, it's as needed. Yeah, so like Tom referenced, like
Richard to come address the budget. Richard, can you come address the budget, please?
And then my next question is going to be, when do we have to make the call to one of these on-call vendors versus our own people, Triscapes, our daily people being able to do these jobs?
I'll do the budget real quickly. So we do have within the Parks Department, so each department set up within the city, we have a Parks Department, and within their budget, they have a repairs and maintenance budget. And so they'll identify line items that they think they're going to use, so repairs and maintenance on its estimates, the budget's an estimate at the beginning of the year, and they'll estimate their need for this contract or these contractors at the beginning of the year, and so it's all within that repairs and maintenance line item, though, that's where they have it at.
No, it's Stacy's question really was, is it capital or general? But it's operational, general operations. Okay. And then,
yeah, so we determine based on the scope of what's needed, like, to your point, if it's something Triscapes can do, or if it does need additional help, case by case basis.
Okay, thank you. Could this be consent, or were there too many questions? You do. Oh, there's a correction that needs to be made on that one contract. So we'll see it on regular agenda, please.
Yeah.
Sure. Next up, Michael Smith. And you're presenting the paving plan for the next 5 years.
Yes. Pull it up here. Okay. About every 5 years, the city hires a consultant to come in and do an independent evaluation of all the pavement in the city that we maintain.
Can you lean into the microphone? Thank
Okay.
you.
We evaluate all the pavement the city maintains, and they rate each segment of roadway. So I'm here to report tonight on most recent pavement evaluations that were completed in 2023 and present recommendations for the next 5 years of paving. The assessment in 2023 was completed by KCI Technologies. They used a van with instrumentation on it that rides all the roads in cities and measures the cracks, measures the ride roughness and other factors. And they take all that data and they develop a pavement
condition index, or a PCI score, we call it. And the PCI is determined for each segment of roadway throughout the city. The PCIs, you see the scale here ranges from 0 to 100. 0 would be a completely failed pavement, and 100 would be a brand new pavement with no defects. Results are in, and our condition for 2023 overall is good. It's from satisfactory to good. The overall PCI score for the whole network was a 75, and 85% of the city's pavement area is in fair or better condition. To put that in a little bit of context, the blue columns here show what the ratings were in 2018. And then the light orange is what we projected based on our spending, where we would be in 2023. And then the darker orange is where we ended up. So we're pretty close to our target. We actually ended up higher with a higher percentage in satisfactory condition and a lower percentage in poor condition than what we projected, but overall pretty close. Looking at the PCI score for different types of streets, you've got arterial and collector streets, which are your main roads that have more traffic on them, and then you have your neighborhood local streets, and the PCI score is fairly consistent for all three types of roadway. The neighborhood score is a little higher. That's primarily a fact that was really a focus area over the last few years to get the neighborhood streets paved and be on the 20-year paving cycle that I'll talk more about in a minute. As I said, there was a PCI score assigned for each segment of roadway. We have a map here. There's a lot of green on the map, which is good. The red segments are mostly within neighborhoods, and most of those will be slotted for paving in the next 5 years. In fact, some of them have already been paid because these ratings were done in 2023 before we did our 2023 paving. So some of the red has already been taken care of. You've heard me say before that paving never ends. This graph here shows one of the reasons why. With the updated plan has models for pavement deterioration that have been adjusted based on data that we've actually collected in Dunwoody. And this is how the pavement would typically deteriorate for a local neighborhood street. You can see every year, every day, really, the pavement is deteriorating based from traffic, weather, environmental conditions. And, you know, for the first, for a local street, if you start out at 100 and you go out to about 20 years, you're down to around 50. So it goes down 2 to 3 PCI points per year if you don't do anything. And that 50 is the break-even point. Below that, you're into poor and very poor streets. So that's where we come up with the 20-year paving cycle for local streets. If you repave it or rehabilitate it in the 20-year period, you stay on that flatter part of the curve before it starts to drop off and it deteriorates more rapidly with time. We have one also for arterial collector streets. Those are going to deteriorate a little faster, the more traffic on them. For those streets, we'd like to stay on that upper part of the curve, and which results in repaving or rehabilitation every 9 to 14 or 15 years before it starts to deteriorate faster. Back to our distribution of the condition. If we didn't fund paving at all every 1 year or for several years, these ratings just continue to move to the left. So you have a lot of streets in satisfactory or good condition. Every year they're moving down towards poor or very poor. And so the more you get into that poor and very poor category,
it costs a lot more money to catch back up and get into good standing. And we can see this, how this happened with, historically with Dunwoody. The orange line is the PCI score every time we've done an assessment starting in 2009. You know, in 2009, we inherited a pretty big backlog when we incorporated a lot of streets had not been paid for a long time. The PCI score at that time wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. But there was some backlog, and the first couple of years of the city, you know, we didn't have as much money to put towards paving. So it wasn't until really year 3 where we started to fully fund paving. So that first 5 years, that wave of the backlog of streets, by 2013, we had a really serious backlog problem, and our PCI score had dropped, even though we had started paving at that point. So the city council, you know, decided to put more money into it to try to catch back up, and we did. In 2018, the PCI score started going up. The backlog came back down, and then in this last rating, the score has gone up even higher, and we're maintaining a pretty steady backlog of streets in poor or worse condition at around a little under 15%. And then we projected out, you know, based on current funding levels, projecting out, and talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but 5 years from now, we expect to be maybe slightly lower on PCI score, but also slightly lower on backlog. And I thought it would be interesting looking at this to see if this has had what kind of impact this has had on our maintenance, our general fund maintenance and operations. If you're putting money into paving and the scores are going up, your streets are getting in better condition, you would expect that your maintenance burden would be less. So I went back and looked. The purple line is the number of pavement related work orders we've completed every year. You can see in 2009-10, we were filling a lot of potholes, just kind of triaging where we were at the time. But that number of work orders has continued to go down, and 2023 was our lowest year so far, corresponding with our highest PCI score. And then the green line is the annual amount of money annually we've spent in the general fund on street maintenance. It's not an exact comparison because that street maintenance budget line item includes sidewalk repairs and things too, but a lot of it is street related. You can see we peaked in 2013. At that point, we were still trying to catch up. We were doing a lot of bigger repairs until the streets could be paved. Not so much pothole filling, but patching. But since 2013, with the infusion into the repaving program, the cost annually has continued to drop. And we've been able to use, in recent years, we've been able to use that funding that we're not spending on street maintenance for more sidewalk repairs, for a higher standard of, for a high standard of traffic signal maintenance. So overall, it has been a positive impact on our maintenance budget, and I think tells a real success story for the city and how the city council has continued to, you know, take care of maintaining one of our biggest infrastructure assets. Putting together the 5-year, the next 5 years, the KCI looked at several budget scenarios to see, you know, depending on how much you spend each year, what does that do to your condition ratings? On one extreme, if the red line, if we did nothing, if we didn't spend any money on paving for the next 5 years, the projection is that we'd have a $25 million unfunded backlog of streets that needed attention. On the other extreme, if we said, okay, we don't want to have any backlog, it would take about $4.8 million a year, and you would reduce that backlog down to 0, which is not, I mean, typically most agencies are going to have some amount of backlog just because competing resources for finances, it's usually not practical to have no streets that are, in poor condition. So somewhere in the middle is where we look to be, and the blue line is our current funding, the current amount of money that's going directly into resurfacing. And that shows in 5 years, if we maintain that level of funding, that our unfunded backlog will remain about the same. The PCI score will go down slightly. And then the other kind of middle ground there is the green line. If we spend a little more money, we can maintain current condition. But it's, it's $700,000 more a year. Just to put in perspective, the 4.8 million number is about 60% of our total SPLOST transportation budget. So like I said, it's probably not realistic to spend that amount of money on paving with all the other projects and competing interests. The blue line here shows kind of what I mentioned. Most people do carry some amount of backlog. The blue line here shows what a typical agency that has an established paving program would have for a distribution. The columns is what ours actually is, and the blue line is kind of a typical distribution. So you can see we have a few more streets or area in the good category and a little bit less in the fair category, and we're about the same on the poor and very poor. So when we talk about and one of the reasons when I mentioned if we stay with our current level of funding, the backlog will stay about the same. The PCI score will go down slightly. The reason is that the amount in the good will kind of shift over to the fair. So we still will have about the same amount in very poor or poor condition, but we'll have a few more streets in fair condition rather than the good condition. And the reason we have so many in good condition right now is we've spent a lot of money on paving the last few years. So when we talk about a sustainable paving program, what we're trying to do is keep the low end at a low percentage and maintain a high percentage of the pavement in fair or better condition. So what everybody's waiting to see is, when are the streets going to be paved? So here's a map of what we are recommending for 2025 to 2024 to 2028. The couple of comments on this, we tried to, as we have in the past, we've tried to allocate our group neighborhood streets, especially by location for cost efficiency. And then some of the arterial and collectors that are shown are based on how they might coincide with other transportation projects. And if you zoom in, you can see there are still some streets on here that are gray, which means they haven't been paved in the past and they're not in the next 5-year plan. 2028 will be the 19th year of paving for the city. So we have one more year for that 20-year cycle, and we expect that 20th year will catch the few neighborhood streets that aren't shown in this plan here. And after we pave in 2024, we'll update this 5-year plan to show it all the way out to 20 years. A couple other notes, there's a few streets listed on here like Ashford Center Parkway, a couple others. They're listed on here, but they're only going to be for patching when we're in the area paving other streets. These are streets that have been paved before, so they don't really need a full repave, but they are slated for some patching. And then also Stapleton Court was one that I noticed was not on here that we would add in 2028 when we do Stapleton Drive, because they're both right there together. That's my presentation at this point. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, everyone, I know a lot of people are anxious to get this 5-year update and see where their street is on this. I know there's you actually have already answered several of the questions that I had here. is there a way just for the future when because we do this about every 5 years, could we make a note, and I know scheduling is a big part of this, any way to have the evaluation of the roads we're paving in that current year be done after the road is paved? Because when I first looked at the map, I saw a lot of red roads. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't we just pave that this summer? And when I went back and so there's a lot of roads. So the condition map isn't 100% accurate. I know it's never going to be perfect because of scheduling, but is there a way to coordinate the evaluation of the street after the road's been paved if we know that's on the schedule for that current year?
We try to do it before the paving from the standpoint of, if we did it, say in the fall, it takes some time to compile the data and get the report, and then that kind of puts us behind the 8 ball the next year, trying to get the next plan together. I will say we're getting some new pavement software with this, and it's going to have a dashboard that will be accessible to the public. And one thing we can do right now, the report reflects, what was surveyed at the time, but with that software, we will be able to continuously update that. So we can also generate a map that shows what it is now or what it will be after we pave in 2024. So that we will have updated results.
Okay, yeah, that's great, because it is good to have as accurate as we can, reflection of the actual conditions of the road. So looking at the 5-year pavement plan, and I know there's no perfect way to do this. I know a lot of it is, as you mentioned, it's a combination of road conditions and trying to group neighborhoods together. You actually answered the question, one of the questions I had on Ashford Center Parkway, because I saw that was on the list for 2024, and the majority of that road was in good or satisfactory condition. So I was a little surprised. And I know maybe arterials or collectors are on a more frequent schedule, but yeah, I guess that's just patching, you said, right?
Yes, we're planning, as we're in the area, we're doing some paving and perimeter. We're planning to do some patching as needed on that road.
When we have roads to be repaved fully, so maybe not the case there, but I know Winters Chapel, there's a portion of there that's on the list where we have excessive pavement that we're not used, like really, really wide shoulders. Do we ever look at the possibility of road diets in those situations where we could narrow the roads and accomplish a couple of things, make the road safer by hopefully getting some of the speeds down, because those wider roads tend to encourage people to drive faster, as well as if we're able to take away some of that dead pavement, we're reducing our asphalt costs as well moving forward. Do we ever look at that, and how are those determinations made?
We do, through our complete streets policy that was adopted early on. That's part of looking at how you can accommodate other users when we are doing resurfacing projects. It's pretty easy to do where you have extra width. It's pretty easy to do through moving the striping around. It will get a little more involved if we were actually looking to actually physically move the curb, but we do look at those when those come up for paving. And we've done a lot of the bike lanes we have come through narrowing the lanes through resurfacing.
But yeah, there's also, as you mentioned, there's associated costs of moving curbs and perhaps stormwater and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, and I know I'm going to ask the question, and I know probably every neighborhood on this list is going to ask the question too. But like the Lockridge Forest, the sumac, that entrance into that neighborhood, those conditions are really low. I think what was it, 28 and 45, and that's not being paved until 2027. I know I'm actually going to the Lockridge Forest Association meeting this Thursday night. I go every year, they invite me. And I get that question every year, when are we paving sumac? Now I can finally give them an answer, but can you explain a little bit about how that prioritization works and how we determine 25, 26, 27?
Yeah, the program we use, it doesn't necessarily just pick the worst rated streets first. And what it looks at is on that curve, go back. the curves I showed earlier, where the deterioration curves, it looks at where the rating is on that curve, and if it's at a break point where it's gonna fall into another category, it tries to pick as many of those in a given year as it can to keep them from falling into that next category. And some of the cases where you have a really low rated street, it could be either that there were enough other streets at that breaking point that by the time it selected those, there was no money left in that year to put the low ones in, or it could be that it's rated low, but it's, whether you pave it now or 3 years from now, it's really not going to change much what you have based on where it is on the curve. It's not going to change much what you're going to have to do and how much it's going to cost. So it really is looking at where those break points are and trying to pick the one, be most cost effective and pick the ones before they fall into a lower category.
All right, thank you. That's helpful. That's all I have. Thank you.
John.
Thank you, Michael. Can you tell me about contracting? How are we doing it? Do we have a 5-year contract? Do we have a 1-year contract? How are we doing on the pricing of our paving?
That's a good question. So we wanted to present this tonight, the 5-year plan, and then actually next meeting, we were planning to bring a recommendation for a contract extension with our current paving contractor to do the 2024 paving list.
So the 2023 was a 1-year contract?
It was, yes.
Okay, so you're looking for an extension. We'll talk about that next meeting, extension of a 1-year contract. I'm guessing it varies with the price of oil.
That has a lot to do with it. There's other things that are causing the cost to go up too, like trucking cost and the cost of that gravel or the aggregate that goes in the pavement. Everything's been going up the last few years. We've been fortunate to be able to stay, not have to cut anything. And I think a lot of that's through David Ayers and his management of the pavement program. I think contractors look for reliability and consistency, knowing what they're getting into, and with his expertise, we usually get competitive prices.
We pretty much stayed with the same contractor the last few years.
Yeah, Blunt had a 3-year contract that we extended a couple of years, and then that ended, and last year we bid a new contract for 1 year. We only did 1 year because we didn't have past 2023 projected yet. So, but
won that contract.
They won that through a competitive bid, and so now we're going to recommend extending that.
And I think they do a good job for us. So I'm happy.
Yes, yeah.
I guess I'm just looking at the money aspect. We have 15% of our streets are rated 4 or worse, and you're recommending that we keep the money basically the same. I want to make sure I understand that. I mean, as much as I'm very happy with the paving plan, but that being said, I also want to make sure that we are affecting those that are poor. I mean, I don't want having a score of 90, but having 15% of our streets being poor. I don't want to live on those streets, and I don't want any of our people to live on those streets. How are we getting after those as well? Tell me about that.
Yes, a lot. Yeah, we are recommending the current level of funding. That's something, if prices do continue to go up, we may have to revisit in the next year or two. But right now we think we have it covered with our current funding. Most of the streets that are currently rated poor are very poor, are in this 5-year. Most of them are neighborhood streets, and they're in this next 5 years. The few that aren't will be in that 20th year of paving.
Part of the laser truck review, they gave some recommendations. And in the recommendations, I'm reading that they were recommending $4 million a year. And then if not more, with the increase of materials and construction costs. I know you've seen that. I'm guessing you've done the analysis and are saying the same amount financial. There was a line in there, the increased weight limits. Is state law changing? Is there anything happening to our streets that makes deterioration happen faster?
I'll have to find that reference, but
Sort of. So I'm gonna not totally get it right, but there's a 1-year increase in lumber trucks, which we don't have a lot of lumber trucks, and I can send you the legislation, but there was a lot of, one of our, anyway, there's some some elected officials have lumber as their industry. And so the Georgia Municipal Association, the County Association were successful for a few years holding it off. And now there's a 1-year increase, and they're actually talking about increasing in the governor's budget that he released this week, they're increasing LMIG funding, which will give us more money from the government to pay for the state. But yes, but I don't think we have a lot of lumber trucks. The fear of people like us has to be that when they do it for lumber and it's okay, then they'll start doing it for everything else.
Right, there's just one line in there that said increased weight limit. It's in the recommendation.
I see
We're
that.
looking at it now.
Yeah, I'm not, I need to clarify what they are referring to.
Well, that's what I think that's what they're referring to is these lumber trucks, but that's not a huge issue for us at the moment.
All right, so there's a slight discrepancy with their recommendation versus yours, and I'm okay with yours with the financial information that you have available that they may not have. But there are other things, the robust pavement preservation, as well as it sounds like the new software that you've already talked about. What's happening with the crack filling in that aspect? Is there anything new? Is there more money that's needed there? Or what can we do to assist these poor streets or assist the streets to maintain London?
Yes, we're allocating within each annual budget, we're allocating money for crack sealing and patching. So when we bring the contract for 2024, you'll see some streets listed for crack sealing and patching. And the 4 million they're talking about here, they're really talking about if materials and construction costs and inflation continues to increase. I mean, we're talking all in today's dollars, but if somewhere down the road that number will have to go up because of just the increase in cost of things.
All right, thank you, Michael. I appreciate your work.
So Michael, I know, unfortunately, the folks in the audience didn't realize that we have a free raffle at the end. They could have stayed to the end to stay for the darn it, because I'd like to get a civic lesson. Remember when you ask a question, sometimes you know the answer. Michael, can you explain for some of our folks in the audience that might not know what is SPLOST, i.e. penny sales tax, where do we get our money from? And the mayor mentioned LMIG as well. So when you talk about that annual number, just kind of explain to us where that comes from for the audience, please, on that, if you don't mind, the SPLOST. Thank you.
Yes, I think in the current year, we have the SPLOST, the special purpose local option sales tax, the 1% sales tax, which funds really all of our transportation capital projects. That 2.75 million for paving is allocated out of the annual SPLOST budget. And then the state has a grant program that's money from the state fuel tax. And we get funding just based on how many miles of road we have and the population. It's a formula funding. That for this year is just under $500,000. And so we add that to our local funds for the total paving budget.
So I just want to make sure the audience understands that there's a sales tax. So if you go to, if you don't drive a car, if you don't use the roads, if you go to Quick Trip and you buy a hot dog, that penny, whatever you buy it on, if you get an extra penny, that's going for paving the roads. It's going for these other capital projects. And again, there's these, it just got renewed in November with the DeKalb County, et cetera. And we expanded it a little bit, but we're still primarily focusing on repaving and these other infrastructure projects to include walking, biking, paths, trails, sidewalks, and whatnot as well. So it's a lot of things that we do pay for that. What I just want to make sure folks understand is that when people say, oh, I'm a cyclist and I don't pay for the road. Well, if you're paying a penny sales tax and buying a piece of t-shirt to help somebody pave and help drive the road, that's not a one-to-one. The drivers aren't just writing a check for 2.75 million to the city of Dunwoody to pave roads. I just want to make sure people understand that. And that's a political decision made at the state level. Some states allow local cities to say, let's add a penny on the gas tanks locally. Have more direct users of that publicly owned resource direct users actually paying for that or tolls and whatnot. I lived in Switzerland, my taxes were the lowest in the whole world, but yet we had to pay for use and the fees and so on and so forth. So anyway, just remember when people say, oh, you don't pay for the roads, well, because I want more sidewalks. Well, guess what? We all contribute to that. So that's how the state of Georgia has defined how municipalities are primarily paying for that. So thank you, Michael.
Michael, when I got on council, and we were just starting to pave, and we were paving in numerical order. The lowest scores first, and then, which made no sense to me because we were paving cul-de-sacs with 3 houses were being paved. And so then we adjusted to this neighborhood situation, which is much more logical. But on this map, when I look at it, there are a lot of cul-de-sacs that are red. But one of the things I've learned over the last decade, I think, is that the smaller the street, the harder it is to get an accurate measurement. Is that correct still?
The crack measurements are usually still accurate, but there's the ride roughness component on a short street. You know, you hit one bump and it could skew the whole number, but.
Okay. We intentionally pave a certain time of year. Is that pretty standard for everybody paving, or do some people pave in all year?
I mean, you could pave anywhere between March and December usually.
But we try. Go ahead.
We try to, especially the main roads, we try to do in the summer when the traffic is lower. Also, you know, higher temperatures are better for paving quality. So summer really is the best time to pave.
And one of the challenges I think we face, and it's not just us, it's everywhere in DeKalb County is that how many of our streets would be in the how many streets do you think, or what percentage, if you could even guess, of streets are knocked down a level because DeKalb comes in and does a water main replacement or something, and then they don't repair the road back to where it was?
I don't know how it affects the score, but I can tell you it is a continuing challenge. You know, a lot of the at this point, with all the paving we've done, a lot of the defects in the street are related to utilities, and specifically the water main breaks. And it's really frustrating when we pave a street and within a year there's a water main break and they have to dig the road up. And that happens at least once a year, every year, to a newly paved road.
We try on the main thoroughfares to do the water work simultaneously, correct? Or before paving?
Yes, we usually, especially with our capital projects, we'll go to the cab and say, do you need to or want to replace the water main? And we have done that on several, not every project, but on several projects, they have done that.
Anybody else? Could this be consent, or were there questions outstanding? Consent, okay. Okay, thank you. You're up again with design, contract amendment.
Okay. This is for a contract amendment to really change the project limits. This project, Mount Vernon Road improvements between Corners Drive and Mount Vernon Place, was originally designed to begin where the Mount Vernon Vermac project ended and end where the Mount Vernon Tilly Mill intersection project begins. So it's in between those two. That's where Corners to Mount Vernon Place came in. The project involves, we went through a public input process, presented this to council a few years ago to come up with the concept. It involves a sidewalk on the south side of Mount Vernon where there is no sidewalk today. It involves a shared use path on the north side of the road, replacing the sidewalk, and in some places left turn lanes for some of the side streets, and also some pedestrian crossings. We put the project on hold a little bit while the trail master plan was developed, and now we're bringing it back to move into final design and the purpose of this amendment is to extend the path, the design for the path to Vermac, another, I think it's 700 feet. So that the path would end at a signalized intersection. That would be a safer place than to just have it end mid-block. And so the additional money is to do the survey to extend it to Vermac and go ahead and do that design. While we're talking about this, there's a visual in the agenda, an attachment that shows kind of where things stand on Mount Vernon Road with bike lanes and paths and how we got to this point. The Mount Vernon Tilly Mill project, when that one was presented, some of the community requested that the eastbound bike lane, that there be an eastbound bike lane so that somebody riding from the village out towards Tilly Mill would not have to cross the road to get to the path on the north side of the road. So that project includes a path on the north side and a eastbound only bike lane for the Tilly Mill project. Then back on the west side of this Corners project, from the village to Vermac, you have existing bike lanes in both directions. In the path master plan, there's also a path planned on the north side of the road. So this project is in between those. So on the west side, you've got bike lanes in both directions. On the east side, you've got bike lane in the eastbound direction. When this was presented to council, the recommendation, again, the community asked for some accommodation for on-street bikes. And so the current design for this project has the path and bike lanes in both directions. That's what the preliminary layout's based on. I will say, extending this from where it currently ends at Corners to Vermac, to keep both bike lanes and a path. There are a few properties there that some additional right of way would be required on the north side of the road. So just wanted to kind of recap where everything stands on Mount Vernon and point that out. And I'll answer any questions.
Questions, Catherine? Is there a design requirement to have a 12-foot sidewalk as the shared path length?
For it to be a shared path for two-way bicycle and pedestrian traffic, the minimum is 10 feet.
So not 12.
Right.
And how many front yards would this section go through?
I know there's probably 4 or 5 houses there near Vermac, between Vermac and Corners. Then there's several where it's like side and back yards, and then I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more down towards Mount Vernon Place, where it would be the house would face Mount Vernon. So
Are the homeowners contacted as part of the design process?
they will be. It's been a while, but normally we would, I'm pretty sure that we've done on this project, we send letters, but when we had the concept up on the website for comments, we would notify the people directly adjacent to the project.
Do you recall any feedback?
I don't recall any specific feedback, especially on the north side. I do remember talking to a few people on the south side, but I don't recall any specific feedback on the north side.
There's gonna be a regular sized sidewalk on the south side?
Yes.
It's just shared path on the north side.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
So I think when we did the public input before, did we have it ending at Corners? Or did we just have like vague?
We did.
Okay. So I think the challenge is that I can't quite articulate this the way I want to, but I think we have to reopen it, Eric. Because I think there's multiple ways to do this. We can approve a contract and let the designers go talk to people and bring the feedback back to us, or for us to hear about it. Or you have a community, we have some kind of community engagement now to let people provide input, just so we know. And sometimes, and I know I'm so bad, but I guess at the western end of Mount Vernon, there was some interest in the neighbors having why, because they wanted the bicycle access to the commercial area that way, to the Jet Ferry area, if I remember correctly, but it's been a while. But I think we have to, I hate to go down the design path too much without understanding, or at least giving the neighbors an opportunity to know that we're talking about it.
My question is, we've already allocated $94,500 for this design project. How far along are they in the design? Like, I honestly, so when was that deliverable for the design project that we've already contracted with them for?
We're probably at about 30% because like I said, we put it on hold while the trail master plan was going on. So what we could do with where we are in the contract right now is go and talk, and it's only a handful of homeowners that are affected by the extension. So we could go talk to them, and then with the money we have, and then bring it back after we've talked to them.
Go ahead.
Hey, Michael, maybe we have whether it's at a retreat or not. I'm pulled up on the online the actual concept design, the engineering design from the city's website. I'm looking at the street design. And, as much as I wanted the on-road bike lane, I'm willing to forego that if we want to use, without having to go further in the right? So on that north side, goodbye bike lane the whole way. So all of a sudden now we don't have to use much else. I know that way back when we looked at the Tilly Mill Mount Vernon, that was a compromise. There initially was no bike lanes.
Right.
And so, okay, it's going uphill, it's dangerous. It's a compromise. We'll do the one side thing. So for me, again, we can have another deeper conversation is, hey, I'm as much as a white line isn't going to make it safer and going to get kids out there. So I'm like, as much as I used to like it, not anymore. I'm all for okay, just bring that curb in 4 more feet and then work from there on that north side to me. So, and if you had it, I'd be like both sides. Yeah.
I think we need to work on this a little more, Eric. So can we revisit this? Can we all talk internal strategy about communications and different things moving forward? And then I had a question about the other side.
Mayor, we're glad to do that, Mayor. If you'll, let's just send this back to Sam to study it further and bring it back with.
Right. I think we have to figure out how when we put it out to the public, we weren't going that far.
Right. I mean, it would help, it would help if we're going to go back and talk to those people. It would help to have direction on whether to have the bike lane or not, as Joe was commenting, because that will affect how much impact there is.
Okay, so we will need to visit that another night. Because I can't make a decision tonight. Okay, but I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Go ahead, Rob.
I'm fine with holding it. I think kind of along the same lines as what Joe suggested. The right of way is really wide right there. I happen to think there's a way we can get something really nice without having to grab a couple feet out of the yards. Put a nice path up there. Put a nice sidewalk on the south side and manage. I think we can figure out a way to fit it in there. At least I'm hopeful. And I think I'm willing that if we could take a few weeks to kind of look at this and talk about it and figure it out, then that might be worth it. Because if we're going to put a design out, I think we want it to be what we might be. We don't want to just put something out for people to see that.
Could I just close the loop? We're about to start breaking ground already on a side path on the north side of Mount Vernon in this current year that's funded at Till and Mill Mount Vernon, from Jet Ferry to Mount Vernon Place. And so I think it does the public and staff and taxpayer funding and use of valuable staff time. I think that we as a council need to come forward much sooner and say, you know what, do we want to have this at all? Because why build it just that area that goes to nowhere if we don't have the vision to say, let's go from Jet Ferry to Dunwoody Village and connect those two and make that happen. And I support that and fully endorse moving forward with that. But if we don't, then let's revisit having that 12-foot side path right now today that may be built in the next 12 months at Jet Ferry. And I mean, on Tilly Mill and Mount Vernon. So I think that's what I was too.
So let's see if we can get this in a format. We can talk about it at one of our next couple of meetings. How's that? Yeah, okay. And then I had a question about the 5-foot sidewalk. Is there a reason it's not 6 feet? Is 5 feet like
It will
6
be
feet with the
6.
new sidewalk size? Huh?
It will be 6. The memo may say 5 because
says
that's
5.
what it
Well-
started at, but
It says 5.
yeah, that's a mistake.
Okay.
We're doing 6 now.
Okay. Yeah, 6 up. Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, we will revisit this in full next few weeks. All right, public comments? I'll just reuse your card. Introduce yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, it's Joe Hirsch, and I know all the students have left, but I wanted to clarify some things if I didn't convey it clearly, and that is, I do think that Dunwoody is a good city, but we could do so much better. And when leaders fail to act on things that they know are wrong, that makes you a bad city, and you know what's wrong. I encourage the students, if they ever watch this, to use the Open Records Act, because it's important to know what's going on other than, you know, in theory, and I don't believe to be true, but every single person up here tonight could just be lying through their teeth and not one word could be true. And that's okay for them to do that. That's what politicians, that's what a lot of people do. But when you request documents and the city replies back that they don't exist, that becomes a criminal action, and that's not okay. And for those that aren't familiar and those that are learning the names of people, the people that I named in my lawsuit for violating the Open Records Act for Georgia are our city clerk, Sharon Lowry, our assistant city clerk, Eric Shealy, and our IT manager, Ginger LePage. You know, it's a free way to find out what's going on. City or your leaders in school have to respond to you within 3 days with the truth. And when they don't respond with the truth, there should be repercussions. And it's up to the city or even the city manager to fire those that have been proven to not be telling the truth. And I wish that were true. You know, for 10 years, our city, I've told you before, our city had the word in our mission statement. Our city said that we were transparent. But recently, the city got rid of the word transparent from our mission statement. I know it's a coincidence, but it also is very damning. It's very telling that you no longer declare yourselves to be transparent, because you're not. I wish the city were better. I wish y'all took action. I don't like having employees not tell the truth. I don't like that you continue to hire them and keep them employed. They should not be employed. This is a good city. You can do better. And I hope that you will. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, city manager comment?
Yes, Mayor, we do need an executive session for both real estate and legal.
Okay. Council comments. Okay.
I just want to thank Amy Quinn for coming forward tonight and recognizing a couple of our city employees, Ginger LePage and Sergeant Silla. And I wasn't surprised by that story. That's kind of the city employees that we have stepping forward and raising their hands and said, I'll help. So I just thank you, Ginger. Thank you, Sergeant Silla, and thank you for representing Dunwoody so well.
I want to thank the city staff for making tonight possible. It was a tremendous amount of work for IT, for our clerk's office, for our communications office, all our staff who came and stuck around, and to the students that who mostly have left. But for those of you who are still here, Mr. Berry, they should get double extra credit. And when the mayor says it, it must happen. And thank you, Mr. Barry, for leading this organization for so many years. We appreciate it. Thank you again to Councilman Lautenbacher and Councilwoman Thomas, who's at home watching, for guiding us to this point. And with that, I need a motion. So just for those of you who don't know, we're basically finished. We'll come back to adjourn, but we have to go into executive session. And so I need a motion for executive session for legal and real estate.
I move we adjourn to executive session for purposes of legal and real estate.
Second.
Councilwoman Harris moved and I heard Councilman Hennigan second. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. We will be back, but you don't have to wait.
Do what? What about? Are they gone? Ryan's still here. He's helping out, still trying to. He's the one, they were all here. Screaming school and then so busy. And I took all of them. It was a ordeal to do it. It was good though. I mean, I think it's. Yeah. It was a good thing. Everyone seems pretty happy about it, so. So. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so my son today was, we'll need those for the final. Okay. That's about all we can do until they. Yeah, cause that computer has to stay up there. The cabling to that computer has to stay up. This is not. Not the. Was this shirt even if it was?
Yeah.
The gray one.
The blue one is mine, I'm using it up there.
Oh, hello. Let's grab something here. Well, I'm trying to at least get it in. I'm sorry, buddy. But this one I need to keep. This is I unmuted it because I didn't know how it may be, and I don't want to give that new one. You unmuted? Yeah, it's unmuted. You can mute it if you want to stay close to it to unmute it, but yes, sometimes it's like.
Worried for a second. I think you're at the middle, but I'll do it, so I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I believe that.
This is not. And we gotta pull up all the black tape anyway. Cause that's ours. Do you want to tape off?
Sure.
I'll take the table. We're at a table, okay. Let's see here, so the gray one can come out, but that belongs to them. We're not taking it with us. We're done with it. Let's just stay for the high school. We're not gonna take there. Obviously, there. Ethernet, so I'm gonna go put it over on the other side of the stage. Okay, so the only thing I have left to do at this point, or we will be to unstring all the tables and put everything in a box. And then white. And the white one. Yeah, the white one's here. Yeah. And then there's a power cable here that's ours as well.
Hey, y'all. Don't mean to interrupt. I'm a reporter with Dunwoody Crier. Just curious, how long did it take y'all to set this all up for the?
So the IT department, we got here at 2 p.m.
Wow.
And it was all four of us.
All four of y'all, whole department.
There were four. Well, it's not the whole, we have one more, but it was pretty much the whole department. We were here from 4 p.m. and we were done about 4:30.
Yeah, so 2 to
And
4:30.
then from 4:30, we did the normal setup stuff, logging in and testing and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Are y'all borrowing DHS equipment? Are y'all like?
So the microphones and speakers are from it's actually the school board.
Okay.
They loan the microphones and speakers. All the other technology, the extension cords and Ethernet and computers and stuff, all are done with the city of Dunwoody.
Gotcha. Thank you for
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, but I think it went really well. It was, like, the sound was pretty good on the online. I'm wondering if that will be smart.
I mean, still, we only use one of those cable rows, right?
We used 2 of them, but only because we didn't have a short.
Oh, so we had to use the.
We used the long one.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is it recording?
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I can start putting some of this stuff in. Your computer's hosting too right now, right? So technically I can log out and give you host.
Yeah.
And that way I can get to this box and start putting stuff away. Transfer host over to you right now.
Yeah, mine's hardwired, so it should be okay.
Jordan's calling me.
I know you just called me, which I thought I answered and then it immediately.
I wonder if he's trying to tell us that we're talking. Oops. Okay, so.
What, is he good? The other. Oh, I told you, I thought that's what he was doing. I figured.
Yep, thanks, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't wanna mute it and then end up like missing. As usual, 'cause it's- Okay, here, can you hold that? Thank you. They get stuck together. I'm not trying to make it pretty right now because I'm gonna go back and organize it again as I usually do, but I'm trying to make it fit, you know?
For sure.
Hey, there's this. That's right, because I've already taken it. I didn't even know I started.
He probably wouldn't have been until I called him. I mean, I know he was watching it when it first started, but
Yeah, because he's. Okay, so. I think we're pretty much right. Huh?
Did you ever keep that same?
It stayed on, yeah.
Oh,
It's
still on
fine.
right now.
Yes, it's
You were
still
able-
on right now.
you were able to
We
just take it
took
up
everything down. We left this. This
Oh,
is still live,
okay.
just because.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure I hear when they. But yeah, Zoom is still live. Ryan's got it in the back, so we can take down some of the other stuff.
I can grab the, Yep.
Sure.
Or not. Can we lay it out?
The camera is still
Oh,
on.
no.
But, pretty much everything. Hey, Emil. Hey, thank you very much for all your help. We appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, that works, thank you.
Yeah, it was really well. It was really well.
But it looked great.
But, it's like.
I mean,
This power. All the technically I put it down, it's on the battery.
Yeah, I'm host. Well, I guess we have to keep in mind the computer. The documentation, which is Atlas.
Yeah, so I did pull mine down because I gave you host. And although it's not technically using the spreadsheet, I don't want to. Oh, you took down this camera too.
I did what?
This is the back camera, or this is the camera from up there.
No, that's the one you handed me just a second ago.
I thought I put it in here already. I'm losing it. Oops.
Yeah, the back is really. I put it back, it's behind my. Okay.
Well, they're gonna come back in. So they'll be coming back.
Yeah, good night.
Night.
That's very good.
Yep, you too. Thank you again.
Thank you again very much. I appreciate all your help. Nice to meet you as well. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Black one is there.
What? The black one is there, Jack. We have the blue one and the white one.
Yeah, I got it. That's okay.
We're having arguments. But it's okay. You what?
Me too. I had a different table. Now I don't remember what I did. to it.
Oh no. Yeah, they ready.
Yeah, I would have to at some point. It's good all the way down there.
This one is providing Ethernet. So we can't get rid of, actually. We can. There's no Wi-Fi.
Yeah, because that's not working.
But also.
That's fair. It won't be too much to just pull that out.
So we got all the tape. Cause that's the part of the tape. Yeah, now we can just grab our cable.
Yeah, all the tape.
Really hard. There was a meeting at, and then there's been multiple, you know. Our biggest thing was the strong section. You know. That's, yeah. So, you guys get to it. And now we've had people are the gray part, and then we have a little black. Great. It doesn't fall. I really moved it all. Just didn't even know. That's really smart. I like that idea.
It makes sense. Wait, will I be able to get back in? Are the doors unlocked?
They open for me, we just got signs, but they open back up.
If they don't, open for you, call me and I'll like back.
Well, can I pull the truck up like in front of is there like a no parking zone or anything right in front of it?
That was the front where and pull it right down the front. They sure pulled me back.
Yeah, because I was thinking I might just, put it right where I can put the, yeah, as long as it's not a fire. I don't think I saw a fire. Okay. Well. Okay, so I'm gonna go, Ryan, it's still recording and the audio is still on. We don't really have to do anything with them. I'm not backing it up when I use those. Good, imagine it's literally going to be, but they should be back probably by the time it's my car.
That's why we're having you do this.
Right.
We get out.
Yeah, there you go.
That's why. I just need to. He's not here to inspire me. Yeah, I can't bring myself to do it. I can't, so. Richard, you're we did that presentation for NCL, was it recorded? It was not, it was so much fun. If there are other, like, things like that, I would love more of it, but we were just shooting it out and letting people know about it. And you know, you guys would take it up. No, exactly what we did was like, I just put together the cyber safety side of it, did a bunch of research. Some of the stuff I already know, I think my kids are 20 and my oldest too. So a lot of it is research that I've done. Also from that, so we just basically put together flash reviews and all that kind of stuff. And then after if you partner with me, that you can do the size, you know, there's obviously I think that your questions that follow up with the same thing. So we partner together and basically have
Yeah, out from kind of speaking to mothers, teenagers perspective, and we talk to the police department side of things, and we just try to make it, whatever, they already asked if you want to get it. Oh, this is just for the mom. This is mom only, but anybody is more than ten. We got police and England. So, we were gonna do something that they decided that. And then, they asked who your parents, so we've already got. We fun stuff, and then we're, it's, I don't know. So we did it, our 45 minutes. I would say it's perfect, so we probably had about more time. So we could put it in more time, or we could just 45 minutes, and have the audience, what they want. Because the truth is, in Africa, there's so much. It doesn't end that. They need so much more to do. So we talked about, I mean, so I call it more common. So we talk about content, contracts, and like this kind of dug in, things, what we have to worry about. And how to do that like the mayor. Do it out for 10 minutes. But the first should be setting up the webinar on it. Yeah, and we did it wasn't even a webinar version, which would be or we would not do another. It was people that was really there, yeah, but we did it. But they saw you on our what percent? I think we're gonna offer extra credit.
There's 4 of us. Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations again.